This is the KJ Singh Show with your host, KJ Singh. Now, the Conservative Party are in a little bit of hot waters right now because their topmost donor, Frank Hester, has been revealed saying some insidiously racist things about black people, and in particular and specifically with regards to Dianne Abbott. Now, I think I'm speaking to the choir here, although if you're not, then kind of write in your comments below as to why you disagree with me. But Britain is quite clearly institutionally racist, and what I'm about to reveal to you about Frank Hester, who's supposed to be the biggest donor to the Conservative Party, the incumbent party in power in the UK right now, just reveal the institutional nature of racism. And he said that Diane Abbott, when you look at her, it makes you want to hate all black women. And he says, and why do you simply generalize in those terms? Don't not see her as an individual, but rather see her as a representative of all black women. And he says, I do not hate all black women, but I think that she should be shot. Like, that is such extreme, volatile language that can only be representative of his frustrations with her values, but also black people in general. And people, upon hearing me conclude that Britain is institutionally racist, may contract a little bit. You may, feel like I'm criticizing you, might be criticizing your nation, but I'm not. What I'm saying is really intended to improve the way we run things in society, because a lot of things are not working as they should. And as Thomas Merton says, when I criticize a system, people who identify with that system feel like they themselves are being criticized because they identify with this system. And so it's not a criticism of you if I say that Britain is institutionally racist. It's just a observation. When the incumbent party and its topmost donor, the topmost donor clearly has some very racist views. You cannot simply separate the two. And the sheer tokenization that we see in the Conservative Party, whereby Rishi Sunak himself, from non-white background, and yet his own social economic interests are for the super rich. He himself, admitting that he's changed the funding formulas to benefit, people who are, from these more posh areas, and transferring money from deprived areas. Make with that what you will. But it just goes to show how, the very nature of racism is intertwined with capitalism and wealth. Just by the very nature of how society, upon industrialization and, the formation of our civil society, it led to a situation where people who are not well off came a lot from people who are from black and ethnic minority backgrounds. Now, there are some exceptions here. For example, people of Indian background or people of Far East Asian background, but these people have come over from these people from better off families to begin with. It's not true to say that there isn't a social kind of background that is involved in making a huge impact on how one turns out. Clearly, people who are doing well and are working in banker jobs, for the most part, a lot of them do come from, rich backgrounds. They have the social connections, the networks. Now, there are exceptions here, like Gary Stevenson, who's the author of The Trading Game and has a YouTube channel called Gary's Economics, which I really recommend. he himself comes from a working class background, and there are ways to, there are exceptions to the rule, but generally social mobility decreases over time. And so it's only, a very small percentage of people who actually are able to break the trend. Social mobility has been decreasing with the progression of neoliberalism. And as Yanis Varoufakis says, we're not longer in a capitalistic system. We were in a techno-feudalistic system whereby our rent is paid to the owners of the cloud, in terms of online storage systems, especially owned by Amazon, whereby we pay a huge rent when we do sell our services because a lot of it is online these days. But then, I'll discuss this more in future and go more into depth with economics. But when you see that wealth generally is intergenerational, then naturally it's hard to separate economics and the racism factor. And so it's not a surprise that when you have dissenting voices from historically, poorer minority groups, they cannot make a separation between the two. The biggest donor to the Tory party is racist. And let's not forget that it's not just the Tory party. Labour, because of course they themselves are intertwined with their corporate masters, they themselves are not doing much to help the situation. For example, upon revealing this in The Guardian, that Frank Hester said this in a Leeds company meeting, there was PMQs, Prime Minister questions, and Diane Abbott stood up 46 times in order to be, to request to speak in the House of Parliament. She was not, called to make a called for a question by the Speaker of the House, which is Lindsay Hoyle, who is a Labour-leaning politician. He's in the pockets of Keir Starmer. He wants good favour with Keir Starmer. They're very much in the same bucket. So they're working in tandem too, to control any dissenting voices, especially from the minority background. And Diane Abbott is quite an extraordinary figure. Now, I'm not going to say that she's she's a perfect candidate. She's not. Nobody is actually. And I have seen her, make clumsy statements, but she's very intelligent, very bright. First of all, one of the first black women MPs. No, she is the first black women MPs. She's the longest running black MP. One of the first few to graduate from Cambridge when she graduated in the 70s. Incredibly bright, and has been a comrade with the working class people. And for this reason, for the fact also that she's outspoken, that she's easily she seems like a nail that pops out. So that, people who are from the elite, white supremacist, millionaire, billionaire class can just, point at her and, scoff, scold her. And of course, Diane Abbott, with her record, you'd think that the Labour Party would respect her pedigree, but no, she lost the whip. In other words, she's kicked out of the Labour Party last year for saying something that, just seems like the most ridiculous thing to be kicked out of a party for, especially one that you've been running in for longest as a black MP. Because she made a distinction between racism and prejudice. She said that, I do understand how this can be misconstrued, but I don't think she meant it as, it's a game of semantics in the end. It wasn't something that was malicious, but she said that people who are historically Roma, Jewish, Irish, they did not suffer racism; they suffered prejudice, because of course, visually speaking, it's not so much that they're not separate races from the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant community. And an argument can be made there because when you look at evolutionary biology and genetic, just biological polymorphism, the way races are characterized, they are part of the Caucasian kind of family. Even Indians themselves are part of the Caucasian family. And so I guess if you want to make that semantic game, I do think that it was a little bit clumsy of her to say so, but not worth getting kicked out of a party. The only reason she was kicked out because Keir Starmer is a spineless snake. He is a disgusting MP, a man with no moral integrity. He's essentially a pledge breaker. Everything that he's pledged, most things he's pledged, he's broken. Only as to not get bad press, literally, because he saw what happened to Jeremy Corbyn. He doesn't want to have the same fate, and so he's made alliances with Peter Mandelson, best friend with Jeffrey Epstein. After Jeffrey Epstein was taken to court with regards to his trafficking situation, sex trafficking, very heinous pedophilia charges. He still celebrated birthday still celebrated. Peter Mandelson celebrated Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. So how do you explain that? Furthermore, he's in the pockets of the neoliberal group, including Tony Blair, and I guess he wants to be seen as the winner, but everyone knows that he's a loser because he has no principles. He doesn't even have the charisma of Tony Blair. But he kicked out Dianne Abbott because he wanted to compensate for the fact that the Labour Party had been seen to be anti-Semitic, which is not it doesn't have any meaning to it, because of course it was a scam that Jeremy Corbyn was pointed out as an anti-Semite because he supported the rights of the Palestinian people. It is a political game that is being played here, and Keir Starmer is doing, I guess, he's being prudent, he's being practical, but it just makes him look like a styrofoam robot. It just makes him like a spineless, little obsequious man who just wants to gain favour of Rupert Murdoch. So Keir Starmer's not going to change anything. He's just going to be a understudy for the Conservative Party. He's not going to change a damn thing. Not going to move the country into a better direction. In fact, when the country is over and done with him, it looks like the Conservative Party are going to swing even far right, and the country may turn even more fascistic, because of course Keir Starmer is not a living, breathing human being. He is merely a World Economic Forum, kind of like this pro-establishment, pro-big corporation kind of politician who won't really move the needle in improving conditions for everyday people, which in turn leads to frustrations of everyday people being diverted onto minority groups, which will increase as we have more refugee, climate refugees, war refugees in the coming years. I mean, just look at what's happening with Palestine. You're going to have more Palestinian refugees come to the shores of Europe. So what do you expect? And then you have climate change refugees. With climate change, February was the hottest month on record for February. And, the last couple of years were the hottest years on record. And anyone who disagrees with the fact that climate change is an issue, please let me know what your issues are in the comments below, because 99% of climate scientists all agree that there is a huge issue and we are reaching 1.5 centigrade increase, which is what we were aiming to, avoid, and closer to 2 centigrade within the next 50 years or so. So it looks like things require a bit of a reform, more than a reform. And the issues of climate change, the issues of economic inequality and racism all have the same foundation, which is a lack of regulation of our capitalistic system. And at the end of the day, people in Palestine, people like Diane Abbott, they all suffer the consequences. In the future, I'll talk more about how Britain is institutionally racist, because it's not just Diane Abbott, it's Meghan Merkel, how people, you can just compare how the media has treated Kate Middleton and Meghan Merkel, and they just bring out all the racist stereotypes from the trope bag to attack Meghan Merkel, and not done the same for Kate Middleton. Not that they should, but it just goes to show how they dehumanize people from one ethnicity and not another. And of course, dissenting opinions are also something they hate too. Anyone who criticizes anything is a problem for them, but doesn't mean that they're fair game for racism or tropes or just constant attacks. There's no justification for this. But yeah, Diane Abbott is, attacks on Diane Abbott are just a symptom of the much larger issue that capitalism has in our society. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated.